welcome to the school committee, welcome to the school committee meeting of Wednesday, February 11th. We are in hybrid format. We have Dr. Giblin, Anne Marie, and myself here in person. Judith and Teresa, as well as Dr. Luff, are remote. All of those that are here and are able, if you would please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So we came out of executive session into our business meeting to start correspondence. Is there any correspondence from the community? Okay, no correspondence. Okay, moving right along, I will read the warrants that I signed off on. So for tonight's meeting, I signed payroll warrants in the amount of $2,184,383.57. Accounts payable warrants in the amounts of $59,260.46, $7,751, $4,125.31, $606,000.56, and $7,582.69 for a grand total of $2,869,103.59. Any comments or questions from the committee? No. Next, moving into public comment. Dr. Luff, did anybody sign up today through your office?
They did not, to my knowledge. Dr. Munoz, do you know if anybody signed up in the first couple hours today?
I did not get any signups.
Okay. Is there anybody in public that would like to come up and speak? Okay. Hearing none, just a reminder to the community that if you would like to come and speak at public comment, this is an opportunity for us to hear what you have to say. If you come in person, you can sign up or pop up during the public comment time. Or if you would like to be remote or want to sign up before, you can call the superintendent's office up until noon on the day of the school committee meeting. And if you're in person, great. If you are hybrid, a link will be sent to you digitally, and you would join that at the time that we open for public comment. So as a result of that, I will declare public comment closed at 7:23 p.m. So thank you. Moving right along into appearances, I would like to invite up the Student Advisory Council. Are you good with the?
Good evening, everyone.
Glad
to be here. My name's Yash Shah. And this time, our group, we decided to talk about the current ninth graders. We surveyed the eighth graders, the same students, eighth grade from last year, and now the ninth graders who are in the freshman academy. And we basically talked about, how comfortable do you guys feel being in the freshman academy? How's that going, and et cetera. So to start off, last year on the survey, we asked on a scale of 1 to 10, how confident do you feel transitioning to the high school? We have, 2s, 3s, 4s, 5s, pretty average. And this year, we still see some 3s, 4s, and 5s. And so the analysis on that was students largely view the transition as more manageable than originally thought and familiar. Some described high school as not that different from the middle school and easy to adjust to, reinforcing the strong increases in 4s and 5 ratings. Overall attitude is positive. However, stress and academic pressure remain the primary challenges, as students frequently mentioned more homework, higher expectations, and the need to stay on top of their work, suggesting support systems should focus on workload and adjustment rather than basic orientation. Moving right along, our next question we asked was in middle school. What in middle school has helped you prepare for high school? And you can see the differences from last year to this year. Basically, we asked or the options were conversations with teachers, career explorations, extracurricular clubs and activities, exposure to different subjects. And the freshman this year said personal interest and exposure to different subjects were the biggest factors in preparing students for high school in both years, showing that engagement in learning plays a major role in readiness. Career exploration saw the largest decline, about 41% to 18%, suggesting fewer students feel middle school is helping them understand future pathways, just to get an understanding on how the middle school is affecting the students moving into high school. The next question we asked for our freshman academy was, what aspects of the first year academy have been most beneficial for you? So we have relationship with counselor, have a common group of teachers and classmates, relationships with teachers, getting more involved in extracurriculars. And then the analysis on that was having a common group of teachers and classmates was the most beneficial factor, suggesting that having consistency and a good support system help first-year students feel more comfortable during the transition. Of note is that this is the most significant structural change of the first-year academy. Relationships with teachers and involvement in extracurriculars were also major supports, showing that connection and belonging play a key role in student success. Our next question we asked was, what do you feel like you need more support with? The options ranged from preparing for future plans, managing schoolwork and assignments, developing time management and organizational skills. And the analysis on that was, the biggest shift this year is that students now want more support with future planning, rising from about 45% to 61%. Grade 9 students are thinking more about their long-term goals earlier. Fewer students need help with school systems and coursework, suggesting they are adjusting to high school more quickly and benefiting from the support that are in place this year. The next question we asked was, what has been the most challenging or stressful part of transitioning to the high school? We have the number of courses and electives to choose, understanding the high school's expectations and procedures, navigating online course selection, making friends, managing time and responsibilities. And the analysis on that was managing time and responsibility nearly doubled, rising from 23.5% last year to 44% this year, making it the top source of stress for students. Understanding expectations dropped from 25% to 5%, and course selection fell from 13.2% to around 4%, suggesting students have a clear understanding of expectations in 9th grade, and they are more comfortable with the course selection process. The next question we asked was, what have you been involved in so far in high school? We have athletics, arts, musics, academics and pathways, extracurriculars. Students strongly emphasize staying on top of schoolwork with repeated advice like do your work, turn in assignments on time, don't procrastinate, showing academics remain students' top priority. This year shows a bigger focus on getting involved in managing time, with more students encouraging clubs, sports, and organizations, suggesting grade 9 students are thinking more about engaging with the community and not just grades. And then the conclusion is grade 9 students are transitioning more smoothly and feel increasingly confident entering high school. However, students are clearly asking for more support in time management, academic balance, and future planning. Students note that benefit of having a common group of teachers and peers in their classes. Relationships with teachers and extracurricular involvement continue to be critical to student success, and then continuing to invest in the first year academy while expanding support for time management and future readiness will further strengthen the grade 9 experience. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, comments?
I know that was kind of a lot, so.
No,
Yeah.
that was good.
There are a lot of information, but.
Joan?
That was great, thank you. But I have a burning question. On slide 13,
Sure.
you have, what have you been involved in so far? Perception data grade 8, 24, 25. So this is what the 8th graders were projecting they were going to be involved?
So this was, like last year, the grade 9 students, they were in 8th grade, so that was their survey, those same students this year.
Okay. And what were they being surveyed on? What they were planning on becoming involved with?
Yeah.
So we've got athletics, arts and music, academics and pathways, extracurriculars and clubs like Student Council, National Honor Society, Chess Club, etc. And then we have Greek mythology. So I'm just curious as to what is Greek mythology?
Hey, man,
Do you have any idea what that is about?
I don't know, that was from last year.
Okay.
It could have been we had Greek mythology last year, I'm not too sure.
There was I remember in the survey, there was
Greek
It was a
club.
write-in.
Yeah, right-in.
It's a course.
Yeah.
Okay, it's an elective course. Okay, awesome. Thank you.
There's like 1% football.
Yeah, I just was, I was just
Yeah.
curious,
That was
like,
great.
I think, oh, actually, I think, I think those choices were like on Google Forms, you can have the choices and then other.
Yeah.
And so I think kids just write other and then that comes up on here.
yeah.
Maybe it's
Yeah.
the athletics option for football.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just was like, all right, Greek mythology, awesome.
Anyone else here have questions?
I just love your background. Very,
Yeah.
very with the theme of the month.
Yes,
Love
yeah.
it.
Yeah, overall freshmen do think that the Freshman Academy is beneficial.
Teresa, I see your hand.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Ash, for putting this together and all your great work as always. I think it's really clear from the slides that our students feel that it is benefiting them. But if you'd humor me for a second, if I could speak as a parent who has direct experience this year with the freshmen and previous experience with somebody who was a freshman before we had the first year academy, I cannot tell you. I don't have enough words for the accolades. This has been so impactful, and kudos to Dr. Galligan and Cindy Durain for planning this for years and implementing it this year. The assistant principal, Tony Fraioli, who was hired as the AP for the 9th grade academy, is a extremely strong administrator who deeply cares about his students. And I can't say enough good things about him. But I think part of the reason we're seeing our students say, hey, this transition wasn't as scary and as bad as I thought it could be, is because they transitioned from a team model at Coakley into a team model now at the high school, but not full team. Like they still have, some electives. But it wasn't as hard because they're still on a team. And I think Mr. Rain and Dr. Galligan put so much thought into who the teachers were going to be on the 9th grade academy. And there's a lot of amazing teachers at the high school, but the ones who were selected to teach our 9th graders, in my experience, have gone above and beyond. And like the student data, there's so much behind it that I've seen as a parent. And they are working with these kids on the executive functioning and on organizational skills, which clearly we see from our students saying, hey, I still need a little bit more of that. But they are getting it. And I think it's also important for the committee to realize, as we're talking about budget leader and future budget years, that if you take away the academy, you're going to take away a lot of things that are built in to support our students. And the Freshman Academy also has access to a dedicated adjustment counselor social worker who also goes into all the 9th grade classrooms and does additional work that didn't happen before. So I just wanted to share some of that because you may not know that level of detail. And then I also have a question, and this would be for you, Tim, and JJ, and maybe Mr. Rain as well. A couple years ago, and I can't remember if it was under Dr. Wyeth or Dr. Munoz. I apologize. It's all blurring together. But at one point, we had a survey that compared student perception to staff perception. And we had students who were saying, hey, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And then we had staff saying, oh, you're actually struggling a little bit more than you realize. Does anybody remember that survey?
I do.
Mr. Galligan's here. Dr. Galligan's here. He can
Dr. Gallagher remembers. Okay. So what I'm wondering is, although I'm giving you my parent perspective, and although the students clearly are saying, hey, this is working, I would love to know how our teachers are perceiving. I can assume, but I would like to know how they are perceiving this Freshman Academy.
Do you want to?
I think that's great. I think that is fantastic feedback to try to get, Teresa, on this, actually. I mean, I just personally, I think the Freshman Academy is so valuable. What you just heard today just, proves that. But parent perception on that too would be amazing. It's hard. I mean, you'd have to I would love to find parents that had freshmen that didn't have it, and then had freshmen that actually had it this year for the first time. Because then you could really see, look at the difference, in both my kids when they hit freshman year. But I'm going to let either Dr. Galligan or Dr. Munoz speak more on it if they want.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that if we can find Dr. Luff's example will be a great example to run with. And even though we give student surveys now, and we give family surveys now, we don't ask those types of questions. But it would be something that we can probably put on Parent Square and get some more feedback on, and just a point of reference to actually support the program even further, because we do want to support the program. Because I'm hearing from teachers that are seeing the things that are happening in the Freshman Academy, that they are liking that, even if they're not in the freshman academy, they're like 10th, 11th, and 12th grade teachers. Like, these are some good materials that we actually want to use with our other students in other grade levels as well. So, yeah.
I can speak to that survey if that's helpful.
Yeah, if you want Dr. Galligan to speak to the survey, he can come up and speak to it. Yeah.
Yeah, Ms. Stewart, that the survey that you're referencing was actually in the lead up and the kind of year in which we did research of extra supports for first year students. So we wanted to see what students who were currently at the high school, what their perspective was on their 8 to 9 transition, and then we wanted to get teachers' perception of the 8 to 9 transition. And there was a stark contrast in a lot of the there was some alignment, but there was stark contrast, I would say, in like the organizational skills, behavioral and social emotional aspects of the transition. Less so, more alignment on the academic piece, less on the non-academic piece. But that was in the year, and that was one of the things that led us to recommend a full-on first-year academy. And then the Student Advisory Council has recently discussed the possibility of, and not to put them on the spot because they don't know if they're going to go this direction, but talking to some of the teachers in the first year academy about their perception on this and maybe sharing this data to them in some of the team meetings. Obviously, there's logistics there's time and all that. And I would say one of the things that they had talked about at our last meeting was the Student Advisory Council's function is really a student voice vehicle to the school committee. It could be a teacher voice, and in this case, maybe there's some overlap, but we did talk about how their primary role is reflecting the voice of the students. So certainly open to it, and that is something that they talked about at the last meeting.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing. Anything further from the group?
David, not particularly on this, but just a bigger question. I apologize, I missed the last meeting with the SAC. Do we have another meeting scheduled with them, or is that something we need to figure out as the school committee with Dr. Galligan?
I believe we have our next presentation to the school committee date
In
scheduled,
April,
but not an meeting with the school committee in between now and then.
Yes. So need the meeting, have the date scheduled when you're here next.
Dr. Galligan, would you be able to maybe put together some options for us, students
Absolutely.
that are coming in during a win block?
Sure can.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for coming.
Of course, thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay. We will move out of appearances, and I will turn it over to Dr. Luff for the superintendent report late agenda.
Thank you.
So I have a few announcements tonight. One that I'm going to require your vote on, and one is an announcement to you and the community. And then I do have one more additional item that I want to talk about in my superintendent report, Mr. Hiltz, just so you know at the tail end. The first announcement is on the Director of Student Services, which is an appointment that the school committee has the authority to make. As you know, last year we went through a search for Director of Student Services. It was a very detailed search. We had multiple folks in the community and outside the community apply for the position. And at the end of the day, we made Kate Davey the interim Director of Student Services. Kate has been under an ongoing interview process for the past, I don't know, Kate, what is it, 6 months now? 6 months now, I think. And she has absolutely knocked it out of the park. I spoke to our union leadership. I spoke to CPAC parents. I spoke to many administrators and some staff, and I spoke to you. And at the end of the day, when we know if we have something, we know what we have, we want to make sure that we put the right person in the position. So for that reason, I am incredibly happy to ask you to vote for the appointment of Catherine Davey as the Director of Student Services for the Norwood Public Schools. Thrilled to have her. She's done incredible work, and I'm just so happy that that we have somebody so great in this position. So, take any questions? Take a vote.
Questions,
Whatever you
comments
like.
from the committee? none.
Yep, I was waiting for the online people. I just wanted to say that I just wanted to say we discussed this, and we did vote in an executive session, but of course we'll vote, in an open session to be official, but I just wanted to say personally, like, I think that, Kate's been doing a fantastic job, and I've heard nothing but good things, so, and we've had, we've had budget, sub meetings that have gone very well, so that's where, I am with my budget nerd brain. And just, really, thank you for stepping into the role and all the hard work, and so I'll make a motion.
To what?
I will make the motion to accept Mr. Luff's, to approve Dr. Luff's appointment of Kate to the permanent Director of Student Services position.
Excellent. Is there a second?
A second.
Joan seconds. Any further discussion? Hearing none, because we are hybrid, I will take, poll individually. Teresa.
A very strong yes.
Judith.
Yes.
Joan.
Yes.
Anne Marie.
Yes.
And I am a yes as well. So that passes 5-0. Congratulations on your appointment.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations, Kate. The next part of my agenda is an update on
The elementary school principal search. At our last meeting, I shared with you that I was going to give you an update on the elementary principal search. Since Dr. Bollier has announced that he's moving to the assistant superintendency in Randolph, and congratulations to Michael on that. My main goal in the process for selecting a principal was to ensure that we had an experienced educational leader who could lead Willett through what's going to be an extraordinary, difficult time in transition. As a superintendent, it's my job to make sure that we have the right people in the seat to do that work. The challenge of reconfiguring a school from a K building to a K through 4 building, while dealing with all of the everyday principal duties that are out there, the logistical pieces, the disciplinary pieces, the operational pieces, and while building a culture of all new students and all new staff, is extraordinary. And it takes a balance of an experienced, it takes the ability to balance from an experienced leader to be able to do that work. I was very nervous when Dr. Bollier resigned, and I know I had shared with the community that I would do a full search on that. I will say this, I was thrilled when Dr. Scarlett Grant came to me and said, Tim, I want to take on that challenge. I want to go to Willett. I want to build that culture. I want you to consider me for this position, please. Now, in almost all circumstances, I will do a full and open search. You saw me do full and open searches last year with community input and soliciting feedback. And in this particular circumstance, I did not feel it was one that I could do because, again, we have the right person in the role, somebody who's experienced, somebody who knows Norwood, somebody who can walk into that school tomorrow with Michael and work with him on the transition for families and kids and staff, all while then focusing on a full Callahan principal search. So I'm extremely excited tonight to take a strong educational leader in Dr. Scarlett Grant and transfer her over to the Willett Elementary School to lead that new challenge and provide the staff and the students and the families what she has provided in her experience in her time in Norwood so far. Again, to the community, I know there's some mixed feelings and emotions about not having that feedback and that input into this process, but I also didn't want to lead you along in a process when I knew that Scarlett was the right person for this position anyway. And so I just request your flexibility and your understanding. And then I hope that you help me welcome Scarlett into the position as principal of Willett, because she's an exceptional leader that's going to do an exceptional job for the kids over there. I did meet with the staff, the new Willett staff today at 3:00. Scarlett met with her staff right now at around 2:30. And I met with some individual folks to really discuss this so they weren't surprised by this news tonight. Scarlett will be sending an email out to her community tomorrow morning. Dr. Galligan and I will be sending out a message to the entire school community tomorrow morning as well to make this announcement. Again, thrilled to announce that we'll be transferring Scarlett over to Willett. and looking forward to some great years ahead and a really smooth transition, and then a focus on a Callahan principal search in the next week or so to be announced.
Okay.
David, Tim might have said this, but, oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. No, please.
I didn't see your hand up.
That's okay.
I just
Go ahead.
wanted, for the community's sake, that we didn't vote. You may have noticed that we voted on Ms. Davy and we did not vote on the other, and that is because the hiring or, of principals is not actually directly under the school committee's purview. So I just wanted to clarify in case anybody was watching and wondered why we voted on Ms.
because
Davy and not
we
on
approve
Dr. Grant.
contracts.
Exactly.
Yes.
So just wanted to clarify for the
Thank you
community.
for that clarification. Joan?
And while we don't get to vote, we do get to comment. So, Dr. Grant, this has absolutely, what I'm about to say has absolutely nothing to do with you. And Mr. Luff has already extended his reasoning behind why he's made the decisions that he did. I have full faith in Mr. Luff's decision and in your ability to lead the Willett, so this is no way, shape, or form connected with you. However, when we state we are going to do something, I think it's vitally important that we do it. And so had this been the type of thing that we could have voted on if this was a new contract, I actually would have voted against it because we promised a full and transparent search. My understanding, Mr. Luff, that circumstances changed. I think communication around that could have been better. I still think there could have been an opportunity for parents to talk about what they were looking for, and I think that would have only benefited you to know what the parent community was looking for. And so I do just want to say that we do not have the ability to vote on this, although there's disagreement about that. But I do want to say that it is noted that the process was not followed. Mr. Luff has revealed his reasons why behind that, and I do believe that everybody involved in this acted in the district's best interests. But we will do better to make sure that we match what we say is what we do in the future. Now I'm done. I'm done
Joan,
you.
commenting.
And I appreciate that you were able to express, obviously, your feelings on that, and they are strong feelings. And it may not, we may not agree, but I appreciate that nonetheless. I think that's important. To our friends online, comments? Okay. Hearing none? Go ahead. Oh, you said congratulations. Yes, congratulations. Okay, moving, it's me. Moving right along, we are into business, so I will give an update on the middle school building committee meeting, and Dr. Luff, I may need your help on this, but I did take copious notes, and I'm missing one of my little handouts from that meeting. So we met on Monday, February 9th, and this was the longest middle school building committee meeting that I have been to probably in about 3 years. So as we had been updating you, we are in the portion of the project where we conduct the punch list. So that is, school is occupied, you get done, but there are some other things, like little things that need to be finished or updated as the, project management company still oversees. And we were going through that process. I know that there were some updates that we gave around some things that were done incorrectly. We had the issue, obviously, with the gym floor. We had an issue with access to some of the pipes. Those were identified. Again, this is, sort of well along with on the process, as well as some of the systems that we have, and I'm going to make this up, but like, HVAC or electric or that, making sure that, they're timing their systems right. It's use. You use the building, you see when the demand of usage of things is, and you sort of sometimes have to adjust those systems. So that has been a part of it, and the Compass has helped us out, and the building group is still there. There are also some final punch list items, as we talked about. February break next week is a time to get them done. Some of them are weather dependent. We talked about like the slope of the hill on the road behind the school, some curbing, some guardrail, lining some of the parking lot, and doing it with the stuff that lasts longer than just the paint, the field, all of that good stuff. So that stuff is in there. At this particular meeting, we did highlight some of the issues. So we had a lot of our townwide facilities and building department and town manager there as well. So in the update, we sort of went through of some of the issues that did happen, and it was a very open and direct conversation around, what needed to be fixed, what sort of the process was, and Dr. Luff is sort of skimming through that now. Some pitches on floors. There was, I think the kitchen flooded because they were testing the system, and somebody had left one of the nozzles to dishwashing thing on and making sure stuff drained well. Again, stuff that happens as you move into a building and do that, but it was long for the reason of we just wanted to make sure we went through and had some good discussions around what the fixes were going to be and what was going to happen. As I look at my notes, went through the punch list. Facilities and buildings were there. They also gave us some updates on financially where we're at and, sort of what that final savings is going to look like, with everything adjusted. And because obviously we were a part of the projects that because we happened over COVID and with inflation, they gave us some more money, which was wonderful. I did want to highlight, a lot of the stuff that we were working on with that punch list is sort of like change order items. So, right, you do this big project, you go through these phases. There are things that sort of, although plans and drawings are reviewed and double checked, right? We're humans that are building things. Sometimes things don't go right. So we have, we've done a lot of change orders where, it might be like the moving of a cabinet or the moving of a location of, a press for an automatic door opener. Things of that nature, but we went through those as well, and those are approved, at those meetings. And while sort of it may sound weird, but while, maybe 3 or 4 months ago, it was like, hey, we're starting to wind down, we may have fewer meetings. We are meeting again at the end of this month, and again, that is just part of the job of the MSBC with that oversight, where because these punch lists are being worked on and we're doing some of those things, I think especially members of building, facilities, town wanted to make sure that we were checking in a little bit more regularly. So I know that is a longer update, and you will actually have, another one because we have a second meeting later this month. Dr. Luff, did I miss anything? Can't hear you. Sorry.
Thank you. The list of items, just, we went through in detail as Mr. Hilt said, and we're satisfied with the resolutions that were presented to us via Vertex through the contractors. There was, and we feel very comfortable with the response that they had to our letter. There was one change order that we did not approve at the end of the night, and that one was on the gym floor. So, as you know, back when they first initially put the floor in, the subcontractor did some boring holes for the volleyball sleeves to put the volleyball nets into. They used too much water that ended up buckling the kind of center of the floor and then expanded out a bit. Their original fix for that was going to be just a partial middle of the floor fix. We brought in a third-party contractor because we felt it was more significant, and they recommended a larger fix, for lack of better words. We pushed for that, and the contractor did that under protest, which means they could come back and they could request additional funds for the extra work that they did. As you know, since that time, they sanded the floor and they refinished the floor. And then we had these things called polyballs come out, which are essentially little polyurethane ball that came out because they kind of sweated through each of the seams. Those then dried, they became little black spots. So they are still, we're pretty comfortable. They're done drying now, but they left little spots all over the floor. We're waiting for them to do a final rescreening and resanding of the floor in the summer, because I wanted to know whether or not when it got warm again, if they would come back up. So that said, I believe, and I stated this very clearly at MSBC that night, that these are all tied into the original error that occurred with the boring of the volleyball sleeves. So we were forced on this night to make a vote on an $88,000, $531 payment for that work that was done under protest. You should have heard my but for stuff, Judith. You know, it was great, but I made a clear statement that obviously this was not an opportune time to even have this vote. The floor is not done. The town of Norwood, Norwood Public Schools, and the Coakley Middle School students deserve a new gym floor. We will never have a new gym floor because it's already been sanded and polished multiple times. So we voted to reject this particular payment at this time. And so we'll see where that goes from here, but that was a big piece at the end of the meeting. Other than that, David, I think you got it all.
Pretty good. Questions or comments from the committee on the MSBC update? Okay. Yes.
How much money is left? I saw
So
in there, but is that already encumbered places or?
yes, some
Okay.
of it is encumbered. We are still, because the encumbrances are being spent out and some of the change orders we spend more and some comes in, or sometimes if we do a change order, we spend a little bit more than we need. I think we are looking in the range conservatively of $7 to $9 million that will be left at the end.
Okay, so my next question is there a planned opportunity for the end users of the building, students and staff, to provide an opportunity for potential uses for, I know not all of that money, but at least some of that money, you know? Because, you know, you move into a house that you had built and then
Yep.
you live there for a little bit.
And you
Yeah.
want changes? Yes.
Yeah, we got to talk to the people who live there.
Yeah, there have been a lot of little ones, and I will credit Dr. Luff and the his staff of just, you know, sort of through like FF&E, furniture, fixtures, and equipment. Very good.
Yeah.
I've been on the committee for 5 years. Where they've, you know, spent things, there was something went missing in the library and they like bought replacements, or hey, we're in this room, I think we need shelves, or you know, we need some more cabinets in some of these offices. So that's there. I will refer you to, and it should be in all of your emails, just sort of guidance we got from our attorney, or the public schools attorney, on how those funds can be spent. There are more rules around them. Generally, they have to go to something that is long, and I think I'm going to get this right. Tim, correct me if I'm wrong, because I've gotten this wrong so many times. Has to go towards a longer term, like debt exclusion type capital project. You know, it's like we can't say, hey, let's add more trees and just go out and purchase like $1 million worth of trees to put on the property.
Actually, similar project, similar type project. Yeah.
What about things like mouse proofing or other types of things that tend to pop up when you have door sills that are this far off the ground?
That is a great question.
Thank you.
Cool. We've been, and I brought that up.
Brought that up to our committee members the other day in our more informal Thursday meeting. They're looking into that. So whenever things pop up like this, and they pop up all the time, if somebody from the middle school needs something different and we find it, we've been adding that in and approving those where we can. So that's one of those things that will be part of that conversation, Joe.
Yeah, I'm not talking about like the staff decides that they want, you know, new, up-to-date, different technology that we didn't budget for. I'm talking about like you live in a place and suddenly little things start coming out of the woodwork in terms of like, hey, this thing isn't working, or hey, this locker doesn't move in the right way. Like some of those, the little things.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about big stuff.
Yep.
That's
Yep,
all.
those are all, whenever
They come to us, we're bringing it to the committee and having those conversations. So, and then they would end up on the FF&E or end up on some kind of contingency piece, part of the project cost.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yep. And there's still time for that. I mean, we can't do anything until the project closes, which is a while away. So, you know, because things like this do come up, right? So in terms of what we do with the remaining money, we have to make sure that we're allocating, you know, to all these pieces before the building closes out. We have some time before that happens.
Excellent. Anything further? Hearing and seeing none. You'll get another update in March, which will be very exciting. Moving along in business, discussion of the long-term agenda, how I will do this first. as I already have it open in my head. Obviously, we.
Could I add something that's really quick?
Yes.
Before you go on, so this is what I was going to mention in my superintendent report, actually, is that I want everyone to be aware that there is a legislative breakfast coming up March 3rd from 9 o'clock to 11 o'clock at the Newton City Hall. I know I emailed you all that. I also notified our legislators to go. I have not, they have not yet responded to go, so I'm not sure if they'll make it. But if you do want to go, there is an RSVP out there. And there's also a mask day on the Hill on Monday, March 30th, where people can go to the Capitol and talk about our legislative agenda. And the reason I'm bringing it up here is because I did just add a legislative agenda topic to the next meeting's calendar. So I wanted folks to be aware, because I know some folks will want to talk about that. So, yeah.
Excellent. But as I was stating before, Dr. Luff pointed that out. Obviously, if you ever think of anything offline because it is agenda items, please feel free to email about that, because we are allowed to talk about that. So in March, we have 3 meetings. I want to work backwards. March 25th, and I had that note there since November, is the budget vote. And we also put negotiations with the superintendent. I would like to try to hold that to just those things. Obviously, if we feel that we absolutely need to move it, we could, or add things to it, but I would like to sort of keep that meeting as such. On March 4th, we will have updates from both policy and budget sub. We will talk about warrant articles for Maytown meeting. Teresa, thank you for your email earlier. We did get some dates sent in there in a chain, just of, although nothing is finalized, I believe, having looked at it, just sort of what we are looking for what warrants we might want to need to add. And I also believe budget sub is going to be discussing some of that stuff, some things that might come out of there. We will do our quarterly food service update. We will, again, because it is March, talk about the FY27 budget. We will have an update on the Student Opportunities Act. We will, and as Dr. Munoz walked out of the room, are we good to chat the DCAP on March 4th?
Yes.
Okay. As well as, and I don't know if this was already here, or Teresa, this was added, but legislative advocacy. Is that a good day, or would you like to shift it to the second meeting in March?
No, I think we should keep it in early March. So I think Tim and I were on the same wavelength, maybe after some meetings we were in earlier today, that we needed to get that on there.
Excellent. Jumping ahead in the future to March 18th, we will have budget sub update. March 18th is our FY27 budget hearing. We will take a look at the long-term agenda, some monthly budget transfers. We will have the MSBC update then, and that should be relatively short. Strategic plan recommendations, maybe. How are we feeling about that, Dr. Luff?
Those will not be in place at that point. The work is not going to be done by the committee. We've done 2 meetings so far. We'll probably have 3, I think, at that point. That'll be coming in May, but I can give an update. I will put an update in my superintendent's report somewhere where we are in that process.
Okay.
But no recommendations this time.
So I will certainly move that to April, but there will be a verbal update in the superintendent's agenda. And then we will have our winter athletics and fine arts recognition on the 18th as well. And I did that wrong because I went from March 25th to March 4th, then to March 18th. Questions, comments from the committee? Any online?
David, just to clarify, so the budget hearing is the 18th, right?
Yes.
Okay. Depending how that goes,
Yes.
that could be a lot to do the hearing and then all the other things. So I just something to think about. I mean, we'll talk about budget later and some BBC stuff. But some of that, maybe the recognition gets moved to March 25th.
So would that be something of shifting the hearing to the 25th with the vote, or shifting stuff?
No,
off
we
the
should
18th?
definitely keep the hearing to the 18th, because what we tried to start doing last year is that there's at least a week in between our hearing and when we vote, in case we have to go back and do more work. And we do definitely need to vote on March 25th because on March 26th, Tim and Sean and Anne Marie and I will go to the Finance Commission and get their approval of our budget. I'm just saying that some years budget hearings can take a while. So just something for us to think about. How much do we want on March 18th with the budget hearing?
Okay. Noted. Thank you.
That could be a game time decision too, if we start to hear a lot of, not a game, we know we can't do that with
Yeah.
public
no.
meeting law, but you know what I'm saying, like, as we get closer to that date, and if there is a lot of interest that we're hearing when people coming to speak about the public hearing. I mean, we've had public hearings where no one comes
Yeah.
to the budget hearing at all, and then we've had them a packed house. So I think it's gonna be dependent.
Perfect. And I guess we'll just sort of holding pattern, wait and see, and as we get closer, we can make that determination.
We can always put things on an agenda and then remove them and
Yeah.
let our visitors know not to come.
Yeah. Makes sense. Okay. Anything else? Excellent. Hearing seen none. Okay. Moving on to the Superintendent 360 Assessment Formative Review. So before I turn it over to Dr. Luff, I just want to explain the sort of process here. So as a part of the 360, so this is a formative, this is the halfway through. This is not the summative where you do all the nice writing piece. So despite the fact I've been in education 14 years and do the same thing with my own evaluation, I still can't get it right. But with the 360 piece, as a part of that with the formative, is there were staff members chosen at random that work with Dr. Luff who were given, and I had sent out that question sheet where Dr. Luff had sort of 3 broad questions. Under the first question, it listed some of the goals. I put that into a form. How I did that Google form was I did each goal as a 1 to 5 scale. So there were 5 questions with that. And then there were 3 other questions that were open, and those questions that are on that document that I don't have in front of me. But for each goal, there was the opportunity for people to, if they wanted to add some sort of narrative feedback there, they were able to do that. So I created that in a Google Doc. JJ gave me the names. I then sent that out. Because it was done in a Google form, I had turned off the collect emails, so it remained anonymous. So there was writing, and then there were numbers, 1 to 5, in those. So that was open for the period. It was a little bit more than a week. I then closed it, so you were unable to respond to it after a certain time. And then that data was shared with you all to your NPS accounts, as well as Dr. Luff. And I will turn it over to Dr. Luff for the memo at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Yeah, the idea obviously with 360 was to get my direct reports to give you that feedback about how I'm doing. That was part of my contract terms both last year and this year. This year is the first year that I'm bringing you a formative assessment. Last year, we didn't get my goal set until about the formative time, so we didn't do that. So I wanted to make sure that I gave you the formative, and that's meant. These are both meant to be a discussion for any mid-year adjustments you want me to make, any feedback you want me to give. You know, I'm encouraging all of our staff to do mid-year adjustments this time, as you saw in the State of the Union, having my formative meetings with all of them. So I'm not going to go through in detail like I would at the end of the year with all of the indicators and all the detail and the summaries. But what I did do was to create for you kind of a checklist of things that were in my goals, key actions and benchmarks, which ones are complete so far and which ones are in progress. You'll see the ones that are complete are in green, the ones that are in progress are in yellow. So as you can see with the student service piece, a lot of those pieces are complete. We've done the audit findings. We've submitted pieces to you. We still have a lot of work to do on this one. We have to initiate a survey to staff. We're going to give you some more improvement analyzation at the end of the year. So there is more to do there. But as you can see here, I also included evidence and data. Just that most of these things you've already seen, right? Because these are presentations that I've been giving to you throughout the year. So I won't go into those, but I will give you evidence in each one of those. Obviously, the curriculum and instruction piece, which was that vertical and horizontal alignment. You know, you've seen work on on the mid-year State of the Union, the State of the Union work, the PLC development work, and all those pieces. We still have some work to do on DCAP, which is coming to you at our next meeting. We're going to be training our staff on the DCAP, which will happen after that. And then we'll have a final end of the year State of the Union in June or May, actually. I did not add in evidence here the PLC agendas. I was going to do that. Dr. Munoz has all of the PLCs develop agendas. So all the first grade teachers have an agenda for their meeting, second grade teachers, all the student service folks. But I just wanted to keep those private to them because I didn't want to call them out in a kind of a public way. I can give you access to see what those look like at some point. I would just rather not do it in the public meeting, I guess. But each of those folks do have PLC agendas for all the work they've done so far. We have obviously the strategic planning piece, which we are well underway with. We have figured out that we're going to use TLA. We figured out that we use Thought Exchange for a survey. That survey has been completed. We got more than 750 folks responding to that survey. That includes more than 250 students, which was just awesome. So the process for developing the 5-year strategic plan, I think, is going to incorporate a tremendous amount of data and feedback from our folks in the community and our schools and our staff and our students. We've had 2 meetings so far, one to kind of set the stage and one to really analyze the data that we received from the survey, but also all the district documents that we've been looking at for years and years to facilitate our next steps or our themes of what we want our big rocks to be. Again, this is not a decision that I'll be making, but it's a decision that I'll be kind of part of along with the community in determining what we want to focus on and then obviously budget on for years to come to support those initiatives. So there's some memos here, the committee member stakeholders that are on that group, and those are varied as well. And then I also did include the forum summaries as well as all of the survey summaries in here for your review too. It's kind of fun to see. You can see them by demographic groups, whether they're administrators or students or teachers or community members or so on. There's also social, emotional, and physical safety piece in here. This is, we shared a lot of this work at the executive session, but we've done the alignment of behavioral reporting language, communication systems to report student behavioral outcomes from staff to administration and back. We've done some work on incorporating that into the State of the Union. We're still working on crisis teams and operationalizing the SCOP. A lot of that has been updated and is being redlined and updated. You saw some of that progress at one of our executive session meetings. That will continue to happen throughout the year until we're complete, and we have a new SCOP to present at either the beginning of next year or the end of next year. So then we'll train staff on it even further. Some evidence in here that you do have is, and this one's confidential, I actually had Dr. Galligan's goals, which is his action plan, the things that I asked him to do. So that's why it says confidential there, but that is there for you to see, as well as the safety presentation that is also confidential of the shared executive session and the data from the mid-year State of the Union. And finally, budget. As you know, we've been going through budget process for FY27. We looked at a lot of different reductions that could be addressed. We looked at a level service budget. We presented that to FinCom. We presented that to you. We've done the cost center reviews. And we're really working still on the 5-year financial outlook as well. And obviously, we're in that part now where we're going through and working with our town partners to look at long-term recommendations and then take it home at town meeting. But I put the memos in here, the 5-year financial outlooks, the FinCom presentations, and all the cost center reviews that you've seen so far. The only one that's not in here yet is fees because I didn't link it, but you will see that shortly. So that would be the formative, just so you have an update on where I am, and you have the 360 assessment. So the way the 360 works is it's an item for discussion, right? I think is what the contractual term says. So however you would like to discuss, give me feedback. Any mid-year adjustments you might want me to make, I'm happy to take any feedback that you want to give.
Just for the sake of staying organized and on time, what I would like to do is, and obviously I know questions come up, just sort of think about them, but I want to go online to in-person, just if people have like comments, questions. So Judith, could I start with you?
I know. To state exactly what?
Just if you had any like questions or just comments on the feedback that he's received, any sort of evidence that we have or have not gotten, anything of that nature?
No, I think it was really thorough. one of them was in a like Excel spreadsheet. It was kind of hard to read. It's a little gripe.
Yes.
But otherwise, I thought it was a very thorough and helpful to see what you're still doing. And you know, I've said this a million times, but student services needs a good work over, and I think you know you're going about it in a very strategic and thorough way, and I appreciate it. And same with safety. So, yeah, thank you for doing this.
Excellent. Teresa?
So obviously I've missed a couple school committee members due to personal reasons, so I'm a little out of the loop. So my brain isn't firing as it usually does. On a typical time, I wouldn't even have to look at a document to tell you how Tim is doing because I would know. So what I would first say is from the meetings that I am in with Dr. Luff, which are primarily, you know, a lot of budget stuff and lately the strategic planning. You know, I find you, Tim, to be very organized and efficient and professional, and also, you know, very collaborative, but at the same time, also when you need to set the boundaries, whether it's with me or, you know, employees or our town counterparts. I think you have a very nice way about you in doing that. So I do want to recognize that. I thank you very much for this very detailed, you know, memo. Not that I would expect anything less. I've come to expect that from you. You know, the way that you highlight for us the complete and in progress and remind us of how you've been sharing what you've been doing. That way we don't have to scramble for evidence. You know, this is Judith's first time doing this. So Judith, you're probably like, what do you want me to say? I don't know. So David, that wasn't very nice. You kind of threw her under the bus there.
I was going counterclockwise. That's how my brain worked. So
I'm just teasing. And you know, for the public watching, like any evaluation of our superintendent, whether it is formative or the final assessment, has to be done in public. So none of us necessarily love this process. But the formative is a chance to check in. Although I think, Dr. Luff, you check in with us very often in a variety of formats, which is very clear here. Looking at the 360, which is just a small number of people. David, how many people did we end up sending the survey to?
it was 8. I don't think we got everyone's response.
Okay, so it looks like we have 6 responses, maybe 7 counting, right? Like each row is a person. Am I reading the spreadsheet correctly?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so it's a small sample, but it's very important to get that 360 feedback. And I know I now acknowledged this last year, but thank you, Tim, for being willing to have the 360 as part of your contract. That was something that was very important to the school committee. And I think is a testament to your character that you were willing to get that feedback. So there's a lot of very positive feedback in there. You know, you're out in the schools, you're out in the community. People seem to recognize that, you know, you are doing those things, you're rolling up your sleeves, you're connecting directly with students and staff. There is some area for discussion and opportunity, perhaps, around some communication, it seems, from some of the 360 responses. I'm sure Joan will talk about her own feedback, but this is one area where some of the things Joan was saying earlier about if we say we're going to do something, we're going to do something. So there does seem to be some theme of maybe looking at how and when and where communication is happening, and if we need to change some of that. I noticed a couple comments around wanting a stronger tie in between fiscal planning and the strategic initiatives, which is something, you know, Tim, you and I talk about quite a lot. And I think perhaps people involved in the strategic planning were just not there yet on that committee. So maybe they don't realize that it is something we talk about all the time. In budget sub, because, you know, our budget, everything should tie back to our budget, the school improvement plans, strategic planning, and then from there, everything ties to the goals of everybody in the district. Those are a little bit of scattered thoughts, I'm sorry, but that's what I would start with.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Thank you. Joan, to you.
I actually don't have a ton of formative feedback based on this, notwithstanding my comments earlier this evening, which were an anomaly. I was really happy to see a real honest kind of assessment of what's in progress and what's completed. And I was especially pleased to see that the themes that were provided in the 360 reflect, like there's congruence there, and that's important to me. I also acknowledge that a lot of the things that you have taken on are cultural building, relationship building, building infrastructure and foundational work, especially with the safety and security things, which is the most unglamorous work of an administrator. Nobody looks at the basement of a house and is like, that's a great basement, right? Everybody always wants to look at the pretty walls and all those other things, but I think you're doing a great job of doing those things. And like I said, I don't have a ton of formative feedback, and there's nothing in this assessment that changes my mind on that. I'm pretty happy with what you're doing. I think that the response from the community has been good. I think I have seen lots of great outreach and communication, but I think like anybody who's new to a system, right, you're going to try some things that really take and some things that don't really take, and I think that's where we're still in that process. But I appreciate the fact that you see that that's part of the process and just acknowledge it and are moving on and learning from it. But overall, I think some of the biggest pieces that the school committee worries about are things like, student services, and are we going to get sued, and are we under budget, and what does the budget look like, and do we need to go for an override, and are our staff protected? And I've seen are our students learning, and I've seen strides in all of that, as well as in the presentation of evidence to support that those strides are being made. So understand it's a work in progress, appreciate the fact that you see it's a work in progress, and don't have any course corrections for right now.
Thank you.
So I pass to Anne Marie.
Anne Marie.
Agree. No, I particularly like, everyone's, I'm coming to the end, so I don't really have much additional to add, so I won't belabor it, but I continue to like this 360 assessment, because it not only is it giving us a clue that we're not, that I personally, I won't say we, that I'm not completely off base with my my own personal assessment of how things are going. That it just, it helps to ground us in that this is also, the feelings of staff and the members that we chose for this. I think the people we chose are kind of hard on you in some places too. I mean, like, so that really.
That's good though.
No, it is. I really, no, I like it. I think there's kind of a misconception sometimes when we talk about doing these 360s that it's like it's going to be a lot of fluff, especially if you get like a bunch of people from the cabinet. From the cabinet, they're going to be like, he's fantastic because he's going to know I'm writing this, And, I'm actually pleased to see that in the places where certain individuals thought there could be improvement. I thought I like the honesty. I do appreciate it's a little bit better than last year, where some of them were like, yes, no. And this is a lot more helpful. And I do appreciate that people are watching and listening, to those who did fill this out. Thank you very much for putting in as much effort as you did into it, because it does help us quite a lot to do the evaluation. I think that's really all I'll add, is that I just continue to like this tool, and hopefully we can continue to use it, and it's not a scary thing to their superintendents trying to get it out of their contracts.
And
Just as an aside, between this survey and the strategic plan survey that went out, like, I want everyone to know that I read all of these things, right? I don't know who's sending them. And I'm going through and I'm like, oh, we got to adjust that, got to fix that, got to do that. Poor JJ, I'm like, hey, let's do this agenda differently. Let's go, let's get it out. You know what I mean? So I'm like, I take it to heart, and I just want folks to know that. And so I hope that my entire team, and I hope the entire school district knows that we all need to have assessments on an ongoing basis to make changes, right? And to adapt. And I'm hoping that some of the honesty came from that. So I think I was really pleased with that too, and really the honesty, just saying.
No, I want to just highlight, I am probably the opposite person in this, where, being in education and being on both sides of this system at different levels, being observed, by a similar system and also doing the observing in this role and my administrative role and all of that. You know, I think that there's this idea out there, and I won't get too philosophical here, I promise, that, you know, all observations and evaluations are objective. They're not. They're subjective. You know, and I just want to say from my time in education and what I know and seeing a bunch of different superintendents in this role and my previous roles in being, you know, not that it's super different, but just as the role of the chair, you have a lot more interaction with the superintendent. I think that, you know, you're doing a good job. You're open to feedback. Although I don't love the 360 tool because it raises some of those questions of like, you know, even when you're asking the public, right, everyone's going to have a different perspective, but it's like, you know, at some point we've got to draw the parameters, in my opinion, where, you know, and again, I understand why we do it, but, you know, if like we're getting feedback from the public, I understand that the public's only seeing a very, very small slice of, you know, what is a much larger pie. However, as the sort of lone wolf on this, I understand that I am the sort of objector to it, but I understand, and I think that it's good. I think the fact that you're willing to get feedback from your subordinates and people that you work closely with obviously says a lot, and I think that with this being informative, I would echo, you know, a lot of what other people have said. You know, Teresa, most notably, I agree with you where everything is so documented so well in that memo format where there's a lot of information that we, outside of an evaluation, have to process. I think that keeps it very succinct and very to the point and keeps us sort of within those parameters. You know, so I very much appreciate that. So those are my thoughts on that. So with that, do you have a question? Yes, go ahead, Judith.
Just one last thing. This
Yes.
is it, and I'm going to make it fast because we got to stay within our time. Communication, you know, nobody has ever complained about having too much communication. I think Tim does a great job of it. And I just hope that he empowers everybody else top down to do it within the schools. And appreciating how important that is, you know, for families to know how their students are doing, like that becomes the culture and expectation, because building that communication means that there's a free flow and that teachers are more successful with more communication. And so I think hopefully you are doing a very good job of communicating, and hopefully you are empowering everybody from the top down to do that too. Because I think that was the big shift from our previous superintendent, who was not a good communicator. And so if you don't know what's happening, you start to fill in the blanks. And I think having knowledge about you have a strong vision and goals, and you're communicating it to us, and you are critical of yourself, which I appreciate, because that makes us a better school district. But I would just say communication is one of the things I forgot to mention. But I think you're doing a great job of it.
You should ask my cabinet what they think of communication, because the other day I was like, oh, I got feedback on, you know, the superintendent's message goes out on Friday, and some people, you know, they don't want to necessarily open up my message when they're done with their Friday and they want to, you know, have their weekend. You know what I mean? So I was like, should I do it on Wednesday? Should I do it on Monday? They're like, consistency is important. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's just a lot of little things about communication and how people want to get it and when they get it and all those things. So we're going to continue to work on that. But
The nice thing with technology is you can open it whenever you want, you know?
That is true.
True.
So great.
Okay. Hearing nothing else. Thank you.
One thing I'll say really quick, Dr. Giblin, is that Dr. Leff actually likes the basement and likes to look at the basement and work in the basement, which is an anomaly in itself, right? Because everyone wants to do the shiny new things, but he actually does enjoy those things that a lot of people like dread to do, which is a blessing for us, I think.
They're super important.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're lucky you had a minute to spare. Okay, we are moving out of business and into budget. So Teresa and Anne Marie, I will turn it over to you for the budget subcommittee update.
So, we met as a budget subcommittee last Wednesday, the 4th, and we did a lot in a short amount of time. There were some conflicts that kept us from meeting right away, and so we did meet finally at 1 o'clock. But we did get done by 2:30, so I was actually pretty impressed with us. So we continued our review of the FY27 cost centers. This one was shared costs and facilities, as well as going over fees. I will not take away anyone's thunder by going, too in depth, because we will discuss fees and the shared costs and facilities. Mr. Mannion will present those to you, but do know that the budget sub went very in depth into those items, so that they were vetted very closely. Several suggestions were made by myself that you will see tonight that were, came out of that meeting. Just trying to, go over all the possible ways we could, all the possible iterations, all the things, that we think will come up in the community, all of the ways we can possibly make our budget better. So then after the cost center review, we went over more of the FY27 proposed budget. Specifically, we spoke about the governor's budget that came out last week, and then the Chapter 70 increases or lack thereof that are happening this year. That is also going to, no, we're not. I'm like, so I'll talk about that, since you're not going to talk about that in shared costs, right? Okay, great. Like I said, I don't want to steal anyone's thunder. So basically, the Chapter 70 formula is kind of screwing a lot of communities this year. I think like 80% of schools in Massachusetts, 85% are being at the hold harmless this year. So we're not getting nothing, but we've been kind of seeing these like pretty impressive increases tied to the Student Opportunity Act for several years of a couple, just nice healthy increases. And I think we're at, is it 250? 265,000 is the increase this year. So that is, yeah, it's not pretty, but it is what it is. And we're not alone. So, 85% of the communities in the Commonwealth are dealing with this exact same issue. So, the funding formula is broken, and definitely needs to be fixed. We did talk about posting of the budget hearing on March 18th, very briefly. And then we moved into preparing for BBC, which we actually met today with the BBC at 1 o'clock. It was a hybrid meeting, and I think Ms. Stewart might have some notes she's going to mention about that. I'll turn that over after this. And then we did talk about the CPC request for the playground assessment, the draft proposal for that. Discussed, some of the concerns around that from the community or from the town, and some ways to how to handle going forward with this proposal. We did kind of bring us into discussions of overall around just playgrounds in general in the town and how they're handled, and the discussion really focused on, we used to get a lot of PTO donations to put up playgrounds, and we probably think that's going to be waning. Just these things are just so expensive. And then I did make a comment, I said, really, I don't think you've seen the tenacity of our PTOs then. They'll just fundraise for 5 years to get that playground. But having said that, then you put it in, and then it's on us. Pretty much you turn it over to the schools, and now it's like, haha, you have to keep it up. And how there's really been no good, and we've tried to kind of address this a little bit with some of our fiscal policies, which are in line with things that MASC has come out with making sure that we accept the donation. I mean, I think we would look like complete jerks if we didn't accept the donation from a PTO wanting to put up a playground that they were going to fully fund. However, it is worth noting that, we're not asking the PTOs to then fund the next 10 years of maintenance on it, and if anything breaks, where's your contingency fund? We would never do that, but those are things we don't really talk about and we don't consider, and unfortunately they are realities to the budget. So we did discuss that, and then we went into the monthly budget transfers, and then of course we looked at our review of the long-term agenda, where we do have other meetings coming up as our budget season gets hotter. what's coming up next for us. We do meet again next week. I think it's next week. We're pretty much on an every other week schedule at this point. Is it
Week after.
the week after? Oh, because next week is vacation, right? Sorry. So next week is school vacation. So we are meeting the week after at 1:30. I think we are 12:30 to 2:30, fully remote format. And that's all I have for the actual meeting. Teresa, do you want to say anything about budgets, about the BBC, since I've talked enough?
Yeah, thank you so much, Anne-Marie. Tim, do you think I should talk about BBC now, or do you think we should get through this stuff on the agenda and then come back to BBC? Did we lose Tim?
Did you just, oh, I don't think he meant to.
Uh-oh.
God knows I've done that a
You're-
few times.
Sean, what would be better for the flow of your presentation? Do you want to go through your stuff from budget stuff next and then come back to BBC?
Sorry, everybody.
That's
I don't know what happened. My screen just totally shut down. Sorry about that.
I was just asking, should we get through the stuff on the agenda first and then come back to BBC? Is that better for the flow of the discussion?
I don't know. I mean, we could talk. You know what we could do? We could talk about it during the shared cost part of the presentation. That
Okay.
might be a good way to put that in there.
Okay. So then I'll turn it over to Tim and Sean, and then I'll give you more of the details and numbers from BBC when it fits into the conversation.
Sean, I just lost all my tabs. So if you want to drive this one and share your screen for me?
Okay. Let's see.
I usually go through and have them all opened up and ready to go.
Oh, and now they're all gone on me.
That's okay. It gives me a second to put on my sweater because I'm telling you guys that I brought this so I would, because I knew I'd be freezing at some point. It was warm when we came in here.
Yeah.
Somebody turned it down, and I'm not looking at the chair. Because the usual culprit.
While you're
Consistent.
doing that for Joe and Judith, on Tuesday.
I'm going to reach out to you, maybe tomorrow or the next day, and reach out to you about possible policy subcommittee days, because I know we have to change that one that's on that Tuesday. That's on my radar, just so you know.
Okay.
Oh, here it is. Okay. Did you want to give an introduction, Tim, or do you want me to just go ahead?
Yeah, I can do a quick introduction. So, obviously, shared costs and facilities are two kind of separate budgets that you guys have some oversight of. And so, we went through these particular budgets with our town partners. The shared costs, really all that came out at BBC, not this last meeting, but the one prior to that. This spreadsheet has changed a hair that you've seen a change today based on some of the select board's decisions last night. So Mr. Manuel will go through that. And then we'll go through facilities, which really goes through the shared costs, facilities doing the law for the schools. And per our agreement that we have with the town, we are supposed to have that conversation about that budget together, and we did. So you'll see information there tonight too, which includes about a 4.18% increase for the facilities department. We feel very confident in that budget. Just want folks to know that. Shared costs, there are some things that need to be still decided on, things like health insurance, right, that aren't quite there yet. But why don't we start with shared costs, Sean? I'll have you go in the spreadsheet, explain kind of what that looks like. And then Teresa, if you want to talk about some of the stuff that we talked about today, I think that's a good time.
Okay. Let me switch over to the shared costs.
It's not as easy as it looks, is it, Sean?
Where is it?
Can we do it for you?
Oh, I see it. Yeah. All right. Okay, so these are the areas that we consider to be shared costs in the budget. You can see at the top, there's a school department budget. We'll talk more about facilities. Facilities budget currently has an increase of 4.18%, just shy of 4.2%. And then you see these other shared costs. It includes things like debt service, middle school and high school debt exclusions, regional schools, retirements and pensions, workers' comp, health insurance, Medicare, capital equipment, rolling stock, liability insurance, transfer to the reserve fund, transfer to stabilization, transfer to OPEB and PEB and compensated absences. The big things there are, of course, health insurance. At this point in time, the town had an 8.9% increase. I believe they've increased that. The most recent one we saw was more like a 10.8% increase. They're still waiting for more information within the next week in the GIC. GIC, I think, is between 10 and 12%, but then it depends exactly on what the plan makeup looks like for the town of Norwood. So they haven't exactly nailed that down, but it's likely to be higher than this 8.9%, although not entirely until we find out. Debt exclusion, the high school, middle school debt, relatively small, or either decreases or 1% increase there. Regional schools comes, from the assessment we get based on students that are going to the regional schools. Retirement and pension, a very modest increase. Medicare increasing by 5% and capital equipment increasing by 11%. Those are the other ones to take note of. And then down at the bottom, you also see the cherry sheet assessments. So those are assessments that come off the cherry sheet. The cherry sheet has revenues and then it has assessments. So those are actually going down. And these are the overall shared costs. Do you want to add anything, Tim, or go on to a discussion at this point?
No, just that BBC will be meeting next week when we hopefully know more about the GIC numbers to get an idea more so of what these costs will be for final, so that we can figure out the overall budget for the town, and then the schools and shared costs, and then make some determinations on free cash, which Teresa will talk about, I think, a little bit.
You want to talk now?
Yeah, I think that's probably good.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to figure out how to fit this in. And some of what I'm going to say, I think Sean has in the slides or said. I might just say it in a little bit of a different way. So bear with my brain here. So as Anne-Marie was mentioning earlier, for Chapter 70, we did not see the $1 million, $2 million increases that we have been seeing for a number of years now. So our Chapter 70 increase is only going up $265,500. So not as much money as we can usually in the past couple of years been counting on to come in. If you look at the not Chapter 70, the cherry sheet, last week I think I emailed out to all of you the cherry sheet for Norwood, and our the town's unrestricted government aid, that went up, but overall the state aid coming in to Norwood, so town and schools together, is down just under $72,000. So the past couple of years, due to an increase in Chapter 70, the total state aid coming into Norwood was always higher. This year, we're a little under, and we talked about that at BBC today. We had a lot of discussion around free cash. Last year's budget, operating budget, we put in $7.4 million of free cash for the schools in town. So that counted as revenue that went into carrying us in our current fiscal year. And earlier today, I forwarded you the packet from BBC that we did not have in advance. We just got it today. So I shared it with you as soon as we got it. Currently, in just projections on the town, there's no free cash infused into the budget. We started to talk about free cash today. We had a very in-depth, comprehensive discussion around free cash. There's a lot of different viewpoints on how to move forward. Anne-Marie, correct me if I'm wrong, we did not take an official vote, but there did seem to be consensus that some amount of free cash can and will be used, but we don't know what that amount is. So all the preliminary budgets that we have heard from Dr. Luff so far, there is a deficit based off of just our operating revenue, what we get from taxes. We did not vote on a number for free cash because, as Sean mentioned, we don't yet know the GIC, the health insurance number. And they're supposed to find out tomorrow. So we are meeting again next Wednesday, specifically to talk about what is that health insurance number, and then are we comfortable with recommending an amount to go into the budgets from free cash or not. What I do think is important for the school committee to at least hear today and then figure out if we talk about it today or in a future meeting, was the discussion of if there is no free cash, what does that mean? And again, nobody is saying that we want to reduce. Nobody is saying that no free cash can go in, but we were having a really honest conversation at BBC that it's important for the community to understand that the services the town provides and the schools provide our consistent revenue from taxes just don't cover it. So in the email I sent you earlier today that came from BBC, on the town side, they ran a couple projections. One scenario was, what if they asked school and town both to reduce the budget by 6.21%? Again, I don't think this is going to happen, but important for people to understand. That would mean we would need to cut 4.1 million from the budget we've been discussing. Second option was a growth weighted reduction that would have us reduce 5%, which is about 3.3 million. And what I would just mention to you now is back in December when Dr. Luff shared with us his preliminary budget. He also had a section that he called Tier 2 reductions, and he's bolded and said in capital letters, do not recommend. But basically, those Tier 2 reductions would be what we would have to talk about if, after the next BBC meeting, it is decided that we can't infuse all of the free cash to meet the budget needs. Am I making sense so far? Yes. It's a little hard when I'm here and I can't see everyone's faces. I only see Emery's face, and I know she already heard this earlier.
Well, again, to me, because yeah.
I wish this would pan. Somebody else talk.
But are there questions from anybody on what I've said so far from BBC today?
Questions in person? No.
Okay. So you have the information that we got from Jeff earlier. If you didn't get the cherry sheet from me before, I can resend it. But just as we're continuing on to the next part of the budget, we will talk much more on budget subcommittee at the end of February about getting ready for further BBC meetings. Oh, the other big topic that we talked a little bit more about was what to continue to do around the Medicaid, the Mass Health reimbursement. So I imagine we will need to bring this back to you after our next subcommittee meeting. We will be talking about potential warrant articles for spring town meeting. So be prepared for that discussion.
Excellent. Questions on any of that portion thus far? No.
Okay.
Thank you for the update. And we are...
Go to the facilities quick.
Great.
Yep. Okay, let me open that.
Oh, these spreadsheets are killing me.
Here's the facilities. So we did, as Superintendent Luff mentioned, we met with our partners at the town. We met with the facilities department to review their budget. It's a 4.18% increase overall. Over the top is just the staffing. So within staffing, 3.4% increase. It covers all of their contractual obligations. They are shifting a bit. They're increasing their overtime by about 22,000, but they're decreasing their shift differential. So just an adjustment there. They either look at the contract items when they do their budget, or they look at the history and adjust the line in some way there. So most of the increase there is on their full-time staff. They, I don't believe they're increasing or decreasing any FTEs. Of course, utilities do have, over 3% increases when you look at electricity and heat. I mean, we'll have to see what happens after this winter and whether they adjust in the future up. I'm sure this winter the gas usage is going to be high. Most of the buildings are either electric or natural gas here in the town. Water, a more higher increase there on the water. With the maintenance items, they do carry this 335,000 on maintenance, but you'll see when you look at the history, it often ends up less than that, because then when emergencies arise, they end up spending it on the various accounts that are under that, such as security or HVAC. So they feel like this is a good budget. We all agree we should keep these reserves here for emergencies. It might not get spent every year, but at least we know if some type of system failure happens, we have plenty of budget to cover that during the year when you don't want to be in a spot where you have to go back to the town to ask for emergency funds for repairs. And other minor adjustments here and there. Communication, removal of waste, they bumped up 10,000, but we lowered communication by 10,000. You see some more boilers, repairs and expenses down at the bottom. They increased slightly, and they did increase their capital equipment repair and replace by 25,000. All told, it's an increase of just shy of 4.2%. Again, we all reviewed it, and we agreed on the budget that they put forward.
Excellent. Questions, comments, concerns, clarifications, queries? Yes, Teresa.
David, just since we do ultimately have to vote on the facilities budget once we get through the BBC process, along the lines of what I was sharing with you with the school committee budget, if we do have to reduce further in the facilities budget, under option 1 of 6.21% being cut from every budget, that would reduce this budget by $603,236. And if there was a second option of a growth weighted reduction, then from facilities, there would need to be $500,000 reduced. So again, nobody is hoping for these things, but it's important for us to know and the community to know that if we don't infuse free cash into these operating budgets, cuts would have to happen.
Thank you. Any further questions, comments?
David, I guess I do have one question for Tim and John.
Yep.
In the fall, like October or November, when Paul Riccardi came to talk to us, and I had asked, what is one thing, that you're looking out for and that we should think about? And he had quite a lot to say about summer work and the summer work that would be coming up again this summer with the movement of, redistricting and how we need to think about how that hits the facilities budget. So was that talked about in this budget process, and is it built in to make sure we have all the help we need this upcoming summer?
Yeah, we are good to go for the summer. He's coordinating. We're actually using Anissa and Vertex to help us with the moving project. So we actually put some of that into the building project. So that is taking care of a huge amount of that. So we voted to put funds in there for moving and all that. So those are some of the things that he was talking about with the switches of furniture and changing and moving teachers over, because those were tied into the building project and the opening of the Coakley Middle School. We were able to do that.
But what about this upcoming summer, Tim?
That is this upcoming summer.
So like the redistricting of the K through 4?
Yep. Because we were doing that due to the move of the 5th graders to Coakley. We were able to tie that in. And so we have funded through the middle school building project, movers and the use of Vertex to be able to help coordinate that move.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
I have two questions. One is probably not in my lane, but overtime continues to increase, and I wonder if BBC has considered hiring an additional person. Sometimes hiring an additional person is actually cheaper than continuing to pay tons of overtime. So that's the one that's not in my lane. The other question I have was about, I recall that the Coakley was on electric heat at one point, and I remember being very concerned about that. And I'm looking at this over from fiscal year 23 all the way through 27, and I see the cost for electricity and heat both going up significantly. And I recognize that rates have increased and all of those other things. But I thought that we had transferred from an inefficient electric heat in the Coakley, which is a big school, to a way more efficient type of thing. And so I guess I'm wondering if there are any savings in there, or if that's been eaten by the inflation and rate costs. Or if that's too detailed of a question, I could save that for Paul Riccardi, sorry.
Detailed question at all. Actually, we have been talking about that. We're doing studies on the efficiency now and what is actually happening versus what was expected. And I believe something just came out from Vertex just a couple days ago on some good news on that front. This particular budget, they just wanted to make sure they had enough depending on how that went. So you could see that go down based on the efficiency of the school, but it's just too soon to tell because this is our first real winter.
Okay. And it's
In
been,
that
it's
school.
been a cold, snowy winter.
And
Is there any conversation about where everything's wired for solar panels on top of the Coakley, right? We just didn't put those on, but we've got all the conduits and everything? Is it?
Yeah, it is set up to be able to do that.
that, but it's, you know, that's a conversation with our town manager, you know, and how we use Norwood Light and whether or not it's actually going to save us money because we get such a good deal with Norwood Light anyway. And so that's one of the first conversations I have with him. So we are equipped. The question is whether or not that would be an efficient way, money-wise, to do overtime, but certainly something we could consider over time.
Yep, just curious.
I think following up on that, when they do cost benefit on the solar panels here in Norwood, because of the, like Superintendent
Yeah.
Luff mentioned, because of the light district, the
Yeah, we get no
the
rebates.
benefit's much lower
Yeah.
because the electricity's already so well priced.
Excellent. Any further questions, comments, concerns?
Okay.
No? Okay, thank
Okay.
you, and that covers the cost centers for
That was,
shared cost facilities. Now we're moving on to fees.
okay. Let me open the fees. All
And
right.
as Mr. Manning brings this up, I'll just, he'll
Go through kind of an update on where we are with fees right now, what we're proposing for next year. I will start by sharing that the current FY '27 preliminary budget is built right now with no fee increases included in it. Okay, so what you'll see here tonight throughout all of the cost centers is a recommendation for a general 2% increase to all of the cost centers, of all the, fee-based areas, just because we have to have an idea that we're continually, you know, raising the fees at least with inflation and the additional cost of contracts and all those kind of things. And you'll see a 2% recommendation each year unless we need to make a substantial change. Now, you might have a discussion otherwise, and that is fine, and we will take your recommendations. We did share one slide here that doesn't only show the 2% increase, but based on some of the conversation at budget subcommittee, that shows what revenue would look like if we raised fees to be at least 20% of the expense of the program, right? So you have two kind of things to discuss there. One, how about these 2% increases? And then one, what if we wanted to do something, a new kind of a model? There would be impacts to that model, right? The larger model, things like we might not be able to get preschool peers, you know, for the legally required services. Mr. Mannion will talk about the amount of waivers that might be added for athletics, and we do have that information for you tonight, Ms. Jordan. And less participation in different things because the costs go so high. So I just want you to know that this is meant to be a discussion for you guys to kind of go back and forth and say, hey, Tim and Sean, let's go this way or let's go that way, and we're open to that conversation. All right, Mr. Mannion, thanks for that.
So this is sort of a deep dive into fees. We did something similar last year, and we're just going to keep building on this analysis and, continuing to develop a fee analysis that we can use from year to year. Just to reiterate which fees we have the transportation fee for our regular bus, the yellow buses, athletics. We have a fee there, a fine arts fee, preschool tuition for the students that are not on the IEPs. We do charge tuition for those spots. Building use, rental, we have those fees, and we have a small fee for Chromebook insurance. It's an opt-in if parents want to cover those costs. Just to recap what we changed going into the current year, transportation, we changed the structure. We didn't change the basic fee, but we instituted a sliding scale on the administrative fee, where we went from 0 in the beginning to incentivize people to sign up early because we knew we were moving the 5th grade to the middle school. And then it went to 25, 50, and 100. We'll talk more about that when we get to each individual slide. Athletics, fine arts, preschool, no increases. Coming into the current fiscal year, we did increase the building use fees by 2.5% on the basic fees, and we adjusted the overtime rate to match the contract. We also adjusted CMS rates with the new middle school coming in. We We kind of right-sized those rates based on the rates at the high school. We did a prorating of the sizes of certain rooms, like the auditorium, to get a new rate at CMS. Chromebook insurance, no change. We instituted a new financial waiver process this year. All electronic families sign up through Aspen, and once you sign up, it can apply to any of these programs, so that's been hugely successful. I know that Mr. Kidd mentioned that when he went over IT, but now suppose a family comes in for transportation, they apply for a financial waiver, goes through Aspen, it actually comes to me for approval, and then if somebody later on, that same family wants to get approval for an athletic waiver, it's already in the system. So transportation, just to reiterate, the structure that we now have in place is a $275 basic fee, and then all students are subject to an administrative fee. So it starts at 0, and that's up to June 30th to incentivize people to sign up early, because we can't do our routes unless people sign up early. Then it goes to $25, $50, and a maximum of $100 if you wait until after August. New families only pay the $25. We don't charge them the $50 or $100 just because they're new. Exceptions, in the current year, kindergarten has and was an exception because they're on the shuttle, but we do expect that kindergartners now with the new elementary model will be subject to the full fee starting next year. Now with the elementary redistricting, many of those families are going to live within walking distance to the schools, but if they're over a mile where we do currently have stops, they will be subject to the fee. Grades 1 through 6, over 2 miles, there's no fee, that's state law, but we should note that all the elementary schools now with the redistricting, we don't expect any families to be over 2 miles at the elementary, because we did have Windsor Gardens going to Prescott, but now that's going to be at Cleveland, it's under 2 miles. Really, the only over 2 miles, grades 1 through 6, will be 5th and 6th graders going to Coakley. So those are no charge, but they still do subject to the administrative fee. So if they need to sign up before June 30th, 0 cost to them, but if they wait, then they're going to have this administrative fee. There's a family cap of $750 per family. There's also financial waivers, as we mentioned. If a family wants to apply for financial hardship, that comes through, and they still do need to pay the administrative fee again. So if somebody applies for the financial waiver prior to June 30th, $0. But if they wait, that costs us because we can't do our routes properly if somebody waits. So we incentivize everyone. If you sign up before June 30th, no administrative fee at all. If you wait, it is going to go up. And that does still apply to people who have waivers of different types. Current revenue is about $190,000, and it covers about 13% of the yellow bus transportation. So as the superintendent mentioned, we're kind of recommending a new way of doing the fees. Our recommendation, at least, is that in any given year, we're just going to increase all the fees by 2% so that people can expect these to go up relatively close to inflation every year instead of jumping up a huge amount every 5 or 10 years. Of course, that's under school committee's purview, and if we ever need to adjust something by a larger amount than that, we can always do it. So that would be going from $275 to $280 for the primary fee. We don't recommend changing the administrative fee or that structure. Last thing we want to mention, with the increase to 16 buses for regular buses, we went from 13 to 16 due to the middle school. Elementary and high school have been wonderful this year. There's no crowding, but we have a lot of students riding at the middle school, and there is still crowding. So this doesn't need a vote, but we are recommending that we eliminate any stops for CMS that are under a mile. There are a few stops in South Norwood that are coming up. I think is it Washington Street? There, we're accommodating it this year by changing our routes slightly to swoop into certain places, but it's not ideal. We don't want to add any buses next year, but the middle school buses are crowded, so we really believe that students under a mile can walk up that distance. Do you want to wait for the end for discussion or hold it after each one?
Are there questions around this? Let's do it that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Joan.
How many are under a mile versus a half mile?
Under a mile, we did see, I don't have the number right off the top of my head, but I do want to say it's about 25 or so students. There are some complexes right by Dean Street, I think. They walk across the street to get to a bus stop. But they're middle school students, so they're already close to CMS if they can walk straight down Washington.
You've picked a bad time of the year to talk about kids walking to school for a mile.
Right.
I think that's too far for middle school kids. I think it's too far. You can shake your head at me all you want, but I don't know if anybody in this room who would walk a mile in 3-degree weather.
My kids had no option. It's become, this has been the rule for a long time, and it just didn't get enforced. It's been.
Can we look at a half mile? Can we look at 3/4? Like, is there another, or is it just that I mean, I know what apartment complex you're talking about, like, that's pretty far across Dean Street and Washington Street, so.
You don't have to cross Washington.
Yeah, we're doing whatever we can to kind
you
of.
do. You have to cross one or the other.
Well, right. I thought you were.
Sorry. You get to cross one or the other at that intersection.
Back to the
We're
question.
doing whatever we can, like I said, to not have to add any buses, and it's been a
Yep.
struggle this year.
Yep.
The middle school buses are like completely at capacity. I mean, when we projected how
Oh,
many
yeah.
fifth graders would ride, and it's to be expected because the school's basically on the edge of town.
Yep.
And they're not as self-sufficient. I think we have 700 or 800 riders at the middle school level. When you get to the high school, it's more like 300.
Yep.
That's one solution that we came up with, just to make a limit and to stick to that limit of a mile. At the elementary school level, it could be, a mile. It may be even a little less based on safety, but we thought at the middle school level, at least, a mile's reasonable.
Yeah, like I said, you're doing it after a stretch of 3-degree weather. It makes it tough.
So
to,
Joan, we walked.
I know. I
uphill
walked
both ways
uphill. We all walked
barefoot.
uphill both ways. Blah blah blah. How much does each bus cost?
Each
Roughly.
bus is about $80,000 to $90,000.
$80,000 to $90,000 a year. We had to add 3 because we built the Coakley
With the fifth grade moving up.
with the 5th grade moving up at the
Right.
edge of town. So
Right.
that's what. Do the math. Help me do the math. 250.
280,000.
So roughly about $250,000 a year. How long is the Coakley projected to be there for?
50 years.
50
according
years.
to the MSP.
So how much is that extra? Is that costing us over time? Multi-millions of dollars.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just
Continue.
saying.
No, I hear it. Teresa, your hand was up.
Yeah, I don't support eliminating bus stops. I don't. I think in today's world, there's so many safety considerations we have to think about. And I think that families would have a very hard time accepting this, which I would completely understand. And I think it would come back in the school committee in a very bad way because we have made decisions that I 100% still stand by over the past couple of years with the Coakley, with where the Coakley was going to be. Like that was a huge discussion. Where were we going to build that school? And we acknowledge that by building it where it is, this is going to be an issue. We acknowledged that years ago. We also had a lot of public forums and heard feedback about grade 5 going there and making sure that those kids could be bused. And then also with the school start time changes that I still 100% stand behind, we did shift that school to start at a time that families have told us, I can't easily drive my kid there anymore. So for us now, after making those 2 huge changes in our district, to say we're now going to remove some busing to the Coakley is not something that I could support at all. And I think if we need to add another bus, we add another bus.
I would just like to say that I think that one of the questions that I asked was how many of these kids would have been taking the bus before we implemented an electronic system and you had to come in with your MapQuest map and sign up in person and be told no. Because that's where, I know when I say, no one's gonna come at me and say my kids walked to the Coakley because they didn't. But I'm saying that, that was the system prior, is actually coming in person, showing where you lived, and then having, a person say, well, I don't care if it's 2.5 miles, by, as the crow flies, you're this much, pay up. I just think that there may have been stops added that were not actually there in the first place. And we're not taking away something that people have had for 10 years. It's something, it was an oversight.
Wait, I don't understand the MapQuest come in, can you?
So, previously, a lot of people, take for granted, the busing, system that we have, the, after-school system that we have. Like, many people don't remember a time where you had to sit outside at 4 o'clock in the morning or 5 in the morning with your chair and line up, queue up outside of the Savage, because the Savage was the only building you had, and the limited spaces. My kid didn't get into after-school care like 3 years in a row. So, there's people forget about these times, but there was something to be said for the oversight with that. So when my oldest was getting into the middle school, you had to come to the Savage with your address. They brought it up at MapQuest and told you whether you were within the 2 miles, 1 mile, and what you had, if you got a bus or not, and if you had to pay. And if you were within 2 miles at one point, there was no bus. There was, and I was like, well, my kid's gonna have to walk across Manhattan Street and across this way. There's no way. Well, as the crow flies, you're within 2 miles. I am not suggesting we go back to that. But I'm saying that there has been, because of the way we did it, with signups being online, potentially not cross-checking the perimeter of where these addresses were, stops were added, that per our policies never should have been added.
So what you're saying is people previously would have been excluded?
Yes.
Okay. I just didn't understand
Yes,
what you're
no,
saying.
that's, yes. That was a very long-winded way of saying, they would have previously been excluded, and I think that's my only, argument against that, is that you previously would have been excluded. We're not taking away something that was an expected right of people, within a mile of a school. It's pretty common at the upper schools to not be bused within a mile.
What's the law for 5 and 6 for elementary school? Is
2
it a mile or
miles.
2 miles?
2 miles.
2 miles.
It's
is
2
the-
miles.
Over 2 miles, K through 6 is the only legal law.
Required.
Over
Like
2
when we
miles.
looked at our tier 2 reductions, bus only to the legal limit, we would only need to bus 199 students if we
Yeah.
just stuck to the legal limit. That would be 5th and 6th graders.
Yeah, and I think this is a good conversation. I would say that's one of those things that, right, like once you start, and I'm not suggesting that we do it, but once you start doing that, people view something as a way a policy has been done or the way someone has operated as, no, that's my right, and that's, that's an entitlement. That's what we do, and that's not a judgment, that is just a statement. Yes, Teresa?
I think it's really slippery, because how do we say we're eliminating stops for under 1 mile to Coakley, but if you're under 1 mile, we're still busing you to the high school just because simply we have enough room on our bus? And I think that if we say we care, and I know we care, but if we say we care about attendance and being on time, then you can't take buses away from people, because there's a lot of reasons that kids need to take a bus. And there's a lot of reasons that kids can't always safely or with their health walk to school. So I'm really against this, and I think it's really irresponsible and doesn't fit in alignment with so many things we talk about. And if we go back to our equity audit, which I'll bring up throughout this whole fee discussion, our population of students have moved in a direction where fees have been hard to pay already. So increasing fees or reducing access to school, in this case of transportation, I just can't be a yes, even in this preliminary discussion.
By the way, I think we looked at the high school and there was only one student that was under 1 mile. So there aren't really any stops at the high school level.
Okay.
And we could look at other districts and see what they do, but I know in some districts that I'm familiar with, it was mile elementary and more like 1.5 miles middle school. So it wasn't coming out of nowhere to take middle school stops out that are under a
How's the
mile.
enforcement? The problem that we have here is crowded buses, right? So there are other, how's the enforcement?
I think
of
enforcement,
bus passes and.
that's pretty consistent. I mean,
Okay.
we don't, if somebody's there in the morning, they're not going to get turned away from the bus, but we do check passes in the afternoon oftentimes.
I would encourage you to revisit that. I have 2 middle schoolers, and their bus pass has been hanging.
Okay. We periodically do change.
Then, this can still be under consideration, right?
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
This is a recommendation we were considering to try to alleviate one of the problems that we're having with the buses. You know, as Sean talked about, there are additional fees that will be coming in, right? Because of some families that are now under 2 miles, under 2 miles. So there is ways to look at, if you say to us, let's get an additional bus, we'll figure out a way to bring an additional bus. You know, knowing that when we have these hard conversations about possible, you know, reductions of free cash, this is one of those big things on that list too. So, but I hear everything that everyone's saying so far. And it's good feedback.
It is.
Can I just ask one question on the bus contract?
Hang on. Last question, and we got to move because we got a bunch more sections of this. So Teresa, go ahead.
So our previous bus contract, we used 13 buses, but we had up to 16. Now we use all 16. Do we still have embedded in the current contract or I can't remember. What is the language? Do we have up to a certain amount built in?
Yeah, there's always spares that they have to have as backup, but we don't get charged for it. So in the past, we had 13 that we paid for, but we had 3 spares that they had to have ready to accommodate us, but we didn't pay for them. Now we have 16, and you could say we have 3 spares, which is really 19, but we get charged for 16. If we add a bus, we're going to get charged for it, basically. If we put another bus into operation, we'll get charged for it.
Okay.
That's a great question.
That's good, yeah, good question.
Okay.
Okay. Athletics, again, we have a middle school and a high school athletic fee, 100 per student per season. So at the athletics, it is per student per sport. Middle school, high school is 200. We have a family cap of 700. We do the financial waivers, as we mentioned, so that's the new system. Current revenue is about $154,000 per year. It covers approximately 15% of the cost. You will see some cost slides later on that show all the fees. We are recommending a 2% increase on this, so it's a modest increase going from 102 for the middle school, from 100 to 102, from 200 to 204. I will say we looked at the waivers. We are compiling participation, and about 20% of the students that sign up for athletics fees do get a financial waiver. Should I just keep going? The transportation.
I think transportation was one of the bigger
Yeah.
ones, but questions, comments on this?
You'll see in the slide later that we are looking at, between athletics and fine arts, there have been questions about, pay per season. Athletics is pay per season, fine arts is full year. We are going to be analyzing that over the course of next year into the following one to make that, make some recommendations on that.
Okay.
Fine arts, it's primarily at the high school level. The fee structure is $150. It's sort of a one-time fee. You pay $150 and now you can participate in any number of musicals or fine arts extracurricular groups. There's really no family cap. We do the financial waivers. The current revenue is $45,000 per year, and it does cover 20% of the cost. I have to give an asterisk here because I've been doing a lot of research. So athletics does also bring in gate receipts, which is also in that number that I gave you. So in the fine arts, a lot of the money, the more I'm researching, a lot of the money is coming from receipts because people pay to see the musical. We also get receipts for renting, some of the festivals come to our school. We get money for that. I would say the actual fee may be a smaller portion of the revenue that they bring in for these programs, but all of that revenue does cover 20% of the cost. So we're recommending a 2% increase, so it would go from 150 to 153. And just as the superintendent mentioned, we will undergo a more thorough look at the structure of fine arts fees and all these fees. We're just going to keep looking at the participation and building on this as we go into next year to get more detailed analysis as time goes on.
Comments, questions?
I just support moving towards parity.
Yeah, no, and I was looking at Joan for that because I know that was something that you
That's my
feel
bugaboo.
strongly about. No, but I think it's a.
Yeah.
We brought this up, this was brought up at the budget sub to make sure this moved forward. And it may not be the parity we think it's going to be because, to be honest, fine arts in general costs less too. Yep. in some cases, I wouldn't say a big production or something like that, but, you know, an after-school choral group is not going to cost nearly as much as, you know, ice hockey team. So there's definitely, you know, it might not be the parity we think it's going to be, but I think it'll be better to have that really looked at.
Or maybe it's the percentage of the cost it covers or whatever. Like,
Exactly. And
there has to be some defensible
That's kind of what I
parity.
asked,
Yeah.
why I asked for that 20%. That was my, yeah. Mhm.
Teresa.
The one other thing I would say to make sure, Sean and Tim, as you're researching this, is to remember there are certain fine arts, like the magicals, that is during the day as well as after school. Like they are classes 2 to 4 times a week. So we have to think about that, right? If it's a class that we're offering, is it really fair to then be charging a fee for it? So I think fine arts has layers of complexity that haven't been looked at in a very long time.
It does have,
Yeah.
it does have some other layers, like you said, sometimes middle school students, they don't have the fee, this is just for high school, and sometimes a middle school student may participate in marching band or the musical, and then they do pay the fee because it's a high school activity. So there's a lot of asterisks that go with the fine arts one.
Yes. All great points.
Okay?
Next.
Preschool tuition, so no charge for the tuition for students with IEPs. Tuition is charged for what we call the peer model students. So each year, there's a certain number of spots that are required in the classrooms because they have to be inclusion, and they're available. It's a monthly/annual tuition for these students, and it depends on the number of days that they attend and whether it's a half day or a full day. So for example, right now, you could go 5 days a week, half days only, 3 and 4-year-olds. It's roughly $4,250 per year for a student. Or you could go 4.5 days per week, full days, so that's kind of the maximum that we offer, and that's $6,210. There's no family cap, and they haven't really used waivers. They've talked about it in the past, but we haven't really had that much trouble in the recent years of filling these spots, so I think that was the idea behind that. Current revenue is about $290,000. It covers approximately 18% of the cost for preschool program, including operating budget grants in preschool. Preschool is unique because you've got the revolving fund for tuition, you've got the operating budget, and you've also got grants such as IDEA. So there's almost 3 revenue sources that cover the tuition. The revolving account only covers a small portion of that. I think it covers like a 0.9 para. We did not increase tuition at all last year. They have been waiting for school committee to deliberate on this, so they did send out a letter that said registrations for next year are opening, but the rates are to TBD, waiting on the school committee.
Okay.
So we're recommending a 2% increase, and that's going to be about an average of 105 per each student. It depends on whether you're half days or full days.
Okay. Questions with preschool fees?
One question?
Yes.
It's been quite a while, I think. Definitely before Kristen, probably before Michael. So we're talking about like 18, 19, 20. That I'm aware that we compared our prices to other preschools. Have we done that? Are we doing that?
I've done a preliminary look. Sean, did you do a more detailed look last year? I don't remember.
I have to go back, but we can certainly put that together as we do more work on the fees going forward.
That would be
Yeah,
appreciated.
when I first came in last year, Teresa, I went in and I looked at our fees compared to, Natick Soul fees and all the different fees in the area too. We weren't that off, right? We, compared to private preschools, obviously we'd want to get to that point, you know what I mean? But we certainly wanted to make sure parents, and the problem is too, the fees you should base them almost on the hour, right? Because some are 3 hours, some are 4 hours, some are 5 hours, some are 4 days, some are 3 days, some are 5 full days and 3 half days, and they're all over the place. But we can do a more in-depth analysis on that, especially as we're going into next year, looking at possible reductions. So, but again, the piece with this is the higher you go up, if you get closer to where a private school preschool might be, we lose our same age non-disabled peers for our models, and that's the tricky part here. I'm sorry about the beeping in the background, though. Somebody must be waking up at 8:25 p.m. with their alarm clock. I thought it was David, like, setting a timer.
No, it's my timer.
It's his timer. Okay.
We can't hear, I can't hear it.
I can't hear it either.
I know. It's in the background. Thank you, though.
Building use, so we did increase building use rates last year. Just to remind everyone, there's basically 3 tiers. So there's a tier 1 that only gets charged the custodial time. That's for school and town departments and nonprofit parent groups like PTOs. Tier 2 is Norwood community groups, 100% Norwood residents. There's a lesser charge per hour and then the same custodial charge. And then tier 3s are the outside groups that aren't from Norwood, and those have the highest charges. Current revenue per school year is $142,000. That does include our leases. It covers things like equipment and repairs to the school building spaces. We do recommend a 2% increase on the rental rates and adjusting the overtime rate once again to match the current custodial contract.
And I will say with this one too, is we're gonna be requesting a policy change at some point on this one where we pull the actual rates out of the facilities use guide. And that way, as we bring them to you each year, we can update those rates. And then we can actually, post them very visibly on our website, or at least communicate on where those are to make it easier for the process. Just wanted to share that.
Okay. Questions, comments on building use?
Okay. Just to recap the leases, by the way, so we have 3 leases. We have a lease with Head Start Self-Help. It does expire on August 31st of this year. We are in discussions with them because we will be needing that space for the LEAD program. So we've reached out to Head Start / Self-Help. We're going to need it for educational purposes because there's a student with a wheelchair that will need access at the Savage Center, and that program's currently on the 2nd floor. We also have a contract in place with WIC through June 30th of 27. You can see the lease amounts there, and we also have a contract with the Norwood Basketball Association. That one will need to be negotiated, so we'll need to reach out to them because that one expires here at the end of FY26. There will be a decrease in this revenue if we can't make any other spaces available in the negotiations with Head Start.
We've been talking to our town partners, facilities, and Tony, and looking at the revolving account on this, and we'll be okay with the loss of that money and the ability to serve our students too. So
That's a relatively short-term need, though, right? Like, are we losing WIC and Head Start within the town?
Well, it would just be Head Start. WIC is yeah.
I'm sorry. Head Start within the town for what would be, I imagine, no more than a 3-year need, educational need, right?
that's known if it's only a 3-year piece. We have different students that will move with different needs. So possibly,
Okay.
I mean, it's possible. It's possible.
Anyone else questions on leases? Nope. Okay. Go ahead.
Chromebook insurance, very small. This is an opt-in. It's $30 per student. It covers the cost if you damage the Chromebook. If you don't, the family's going to be paying more. So it's really just a self-supporting program if your family wants to take this option. 2% increase would go up just $1 there. So if you look at all of the fees, you can see here the revenue in the current year, the projected revenue, and the total cost of that program. You can see the 2% increases on the right. So with the 2% rent increases that we're recommending, it would net about $21,820. That would just, as we said, our budget isn't built on that. It would go towards those revolving accounts, which do get used for costs for those programs. So it would help keep those revolving accounts fully funded so that they stay at a certain level. If we went to a different model, potentially, where we said, let's set the fee at 20% of each program. So you could see here sort of what plays out in that scenario. So the transportation fee would need to go up a 60% increase from $275 to $440. The revenue would go from $190 to $304, and it would cover 20% of the cost. With athletics, we'd need to do a 30% increase from $100, $200 to $130, $260. That would cover 20% of the cost of that program, which is about $1 million. Fine arts, again, it's not all fee revenue, it's gate receipts and ticket receipts and rentals, but they're already basically at 20%. So even with a small increase of 2%, like we said, we're covering 20% of that program. It just happens that the cost for the fine arts, the stipends and things for the extracurricular aren't as high. Preschool tuition, we really, to get to 20%, we'd have to increase those tuition rates by 24%. That may not be possible because we really need those peer model spots in order to run the program, or required to do that. And then with building use and Chromebook insurance, they're sort of pay for themselves, so we just looked at a 5% increase for those. And if we went to this model of 20% of revenue, we would get an increase of just under $240,000 in the budget.
Excellent.
And that was it.
Thank you. Are there any final overarching thoughts on anything?
I just wanted to say where that, the 20% kind of came out of, when we were having this discussion in budget balancing, some of these were pretty close to 20.
Yeah.
And it kind of came up, have we ever looked at, or have you ever heard of a policy where there, you know, you're aiming with your revolving funds to make 20% of your budget, cover 20% of your budget? And would that help actually with future increases or even decreases, let's be honest, but where we're kind of now saying, oh, 2.5%, you know, and it looks silly. It looks kind of silly to go 103, 104, or something like that. You know, or could we tie it more closely into something like, oh, well, we need to hit 20% this year. Everything went up, you know, because the cost of uniforms went through the roof for the marching band or something like that, and so everybody's fees are going up by $20. Or, you know, and it would, to me, that just seemed more solid than just a kind of an arbitrary, well, 2.5% when inflation's going up like 10%. So that was the exercise, at least, that I requested. So I appreciate you doing it to show that, you know, I'm a little surprised in the preschool tuition, because I guess it's because it is such a high budget in the first place, that to get that last 2%, that tuitions would have to go up 24%. That surprises me, that's the case there, but.
Teresa, I saw your hand next.
Thanks. I completely understand this exercise has to be done. We have to talk about it. I get why we're doing it, and hopefully we don't get to a point that we have to do extreme increases. Just a couple of thoughts and questions. So one, with athletics, although it sounds kind of clean to say, like, yes, it should be 20% of that revolving fund, that's going to get really tricky when you break it down by sport. And I know because when we were preparing for the override and I worked on the whole like pay to play concept, like there is a wide swing in what it costs to run sports depending on which sport. So 20% of like football is very different than 20% of cross country, for example. Two questions. One, where are we at with the stipend committee? And the reason I ask is related to the idea of trying to get more activities into the elementary schools. And then if we did that, there would potentially be fees. Are we looking at that for next school year, or is that a longer term project?
We are hoping to have recommendations on what clubs we are going to have added in at the elementary, what we're going to remove to before the beginning of next year. So the idea is that we're going to take the actual budgeted amount that we have, and that's how we're going to allocate based on priority where we have the clubs and whatnot. So that'll all be already part of the budgeted amount for next year. We should have some shifts and hopefully coming to you before the end of the year on, you know, what clubs we might have in place. It'll be an MOU, you know, and what clubs won't be in place. We are still prioritizing by tiers and prioritizing by ounce. We're getting closer and closer and closer. It's been a lot of work. We will have an MOU coming to you probably in 2 meetings in an executive session to talk about some changes there. But we're getting there. But it is based on what next year's budget is projected for.
Okay, and then second question, Tim or Sean or Anne-Marie, do you know on the town side, I know Tony had mentioned at our BBC meeting in like January that they were looking at fees on the town side, like the rec center and extended day. Did they do that? Are they doing that? Does anybody know?
I'm trying to remember if they did finish it, but I know that was a discussion in the BBC. and a recommendation for them to go forward with. I'm trying to remember if that was reported back out to us, and I don't know if you remember, Sean, but I think they did, if I remember right, and I'll have to double check, please don't quote me. But I think they did, and some of the fees are increasing, but that they're not gonna knock it out of the park, and, that was the concern, right, that sure, we can look at fees and increase them, but that's not gonna cover our deficit. I'm like, no, I didn't say that, but you can't not look at your fees and say, well, we're just not gonna raise a thing, and the deficit is what it is. Of course you have to do that. And I wanna say I have heard that they are looking at that, but I would have to double check, and Sean, I don't know if you.
I can certainly reach out and see what they ended up deciding.
I think that's definitely something
I have not.
to bring up maybe
I
at
have
the next
not heard a
BBC.
The reason I ask is if we're looking at these increases in the school, obviously that is increases to families. But then if on the town side, they're also looking at increases to things that parents and young families utilize. At the end of the day, what this all becomes is a tax on families. And a big picture for BBC, maybe more than school committee, but when we're looking at that free cash and how do we utilize it or not, and trying to, toe that line of financial policies in the town, honor our policies, but also not increase taxes before we have. If the solution or part of the solution is then increasing fees that hit families, that feels not very fair to me. So I'm just wondering where our town counterparts are, because that plays into my thinking.
Teresa, my understanding was that they weren't just looking at the rec center and the things that hit families. It was also looking at the Council on Aging and the use of the van and things like that. That's completely free right now but students have to pay for the bus. So my understanding was it was an overall look at the services and should there be fees. But you're right, I have no idea where that is in time or ended up. I think disproportionately, you're right, though. The things that we pay fees for in town generally are things that families utilize, like pools and rec center and things like that.
Totally. Anything else? Okay, and Dr. Leff, as this says, we do not need a vote on this. This was just the cost centers thinking about. I suppose that's a yes.
Yeah, we have feedback.
It didn't sound like a question.
I mean, we heard
some of that. And in the next budget presentation, we'll try to have a more formalized, just quick conversation of what we decided
Excellent.
to present to you.
I will turn it over to you for the playgrounds then.
Yes, I will share my screen on this one, Sean. Don't worry about that. This will be a quick update. I just wanted to make sure folks were aware, because you've heard it in the news, you've heard it everywhere, and probably not from me yet, so I want to make sure you hear it from me too. With this change to the CPC application process, there were a lot of new requests, including 2 from our school communities, one from Prescott, one from Callahan, both the school staff and the PTOs, to fund new playgrounds at both schools from the CPC funds. That set up this kind of challenge for me, I think, in terms of, who gets what and who's competing against what, and what, the rec is asking for playgrounds, we're asking for playgrounds. Playgrounds are more expensive than they have ever been now, and the competition just didn't seem right. So I worked with Mr. Mizuko, we worked with the CPC and Sean, and Brian and Meg,
Megan.
McMore, the PTO president over at Callahan, and we kind of thought through the better idea would be to, if we were going to do anything, to try to get a structured process for how we are upgrading our playgrounds, not just for the schools, but for the town, and try to get a priority list so we can then determine different funding sources based on priorities for playgrounds for all kids, right, in Norwood, that all kids use. Right now, as you heard Anne Marie talk about tonight, we got PTOs paying. There's not a lot of operating funds, not a lot of capital funds. We just, if you have a PTO that is pushing for a playground and the means are there, then the playground happens. And it's kind of really inequitable among all of our schools. And again, because they're becoming so much more expensive, it's harder to keep. So The idea was pushed that maybe we actually do a CPC fund for a study or an assessment of our current playgrounds, integrate that with the current rec playground plan, and then as a team with our town partners, develop kind of a priority list that we can then together go into the CPC and look for funds or go to our PTOs or use capital funds on the outlay plan to actually determine how and when to do our playground updates, because it can't just be PTOs. You've seen the donations, it's been a mess, right? Kind of trying to figure that process out. So this would give us hopefully an idea of moving forward with that process, as well as maybe have a conversation at some point about how we are and how and who are maintaining our playgrounds and kind of looking at them over time. So we have some consistency around the town. So I'll take any questions on this. The idea here was just to share with you what we were trying to do with new CPC, because you may see this at town meeting in the spring.
And I know.
Did I get all that?
Yes. Before I go to questions, I do just want to say, I know Judith had to jump off, but this was a request of hers. So I'm sure she has reviewed the agenda and knows. But Judith, if you're still watching, that update is there. So definitely direct questions to Tim. Are there any questions with the rest of the committee on the playgrounds and the CPC stuff in regards to the playgrounds?
I think it makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's just a good first
It's a good-
step
yeah.
towards figuring out how to holistically handle
All that stuff.
all of them.
Good? Okay. That moves us out of the budget portion of the meeting. It does move us into the consent agenda. I just want to highlight, obviously, a few things. I know when we do this, just if we're accepting and approving donations, we call out that group. You do have the January 28th open session and executive session minutes, monthly budget transfers. I did want to, just in lieu of Anne Marie's announcement, that I wanted to update that new member handbook. So simply, I went through, there's the copy that is currently passed. I went through just in the areas I knew where there had to be updates. Those updates were highlighted. I just asked you to take a look if there's anything else you saw. So that's what that would be. So those would be ready to be handed off. And then the annual report, which is the lovely book, if any of you ever keep and read the annual town report. That is a special Massachusetts thing, but obviously it just comes to us for approval before it gets put in that book. So any questions on the consent agenda this evening?
I'll make a motion to, oh no, please go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, would you just pull up the January 28th minutes since I wasn't there? Sorry.
You can do that.
So then what, we have to?
I'll just pull it out.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion to accept, to approve the consent agenda with the exception of the January 28th meeting minutes. We'll pull those out. With special recognition to our donations from Svetlana Nebelitsky of backpacks and personal care items, Brianna Durning of children's hats, mittens, and scarves, the WCC donation of $500 gift card to the Callahan School. Thank you for those donations. And yeah, that's
Excellent.
my motion.
Second.
Joan seconds. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, because we are hybrid, I will poll, starting online. Teresa?
Yes.
Joan?
Yes.
Anne Marie?
Yes.
I am a yes, so that minus the meeting minutes pass 4-0. Thank you.
Then I will make a motion to approve the January 28th open session meeting minutes and the January 28th executive session meeting minutes.
Second.
Okay, Anne Marie moves. Joan seconds. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, because we are hybrid, I will poll individually, starting online. Teresa?
No, thing.
Okay. Joan?
Yes.
Anne Marie?
Yes.
I am a yes as well, so that passes 3-0 to 1 abstention. Thank you for your work on that. Continuing right along. We are at the school committee addenda, so I will start online. Teresa.
There's a couple of things to encourage community members to participate in or observe. So as Anne-Marie and I mentioned earlier, we do have another budget balancing committee meeting next Wednesday at 1. Now is the time to pay attention to all budget meetings and all the boards. And then we have a budget subcommittee meeting February 25th, 12:30 to 2:30. Also like to invite people to the next school health council meeting, which is February 24th from 3:30 to 4:30. That is a fully remote meeting. If anybody is interested in learning more about the school health council, you can contact me. You could contact Dr. Luff, or you could contact Ryan Quigley, who is our wellness chair and chair of the school health council. And then also in town, a coalition that we had a number of years ago called the Minds Matter Coalition, focused on mental health. We're trying to revitalize that. So if anybody would be interested in learning more and possibly participating as a community member, please feel free to reach out to me as well. So thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Joan.
My only addenda this evening is I hope everybody has an excellent February break.
Lovely. Anne-Marie.
Nothing beyond the same.
Love this.
Yeah,
Love
read it well.
this. I would just like to take the time to thank our town partners, so the select board, the finance committee, as well as members of this committee, just for their tireless work on the budget. That process begins, really it's ongoing all the time. But, you know, it really does begin to pick up in December, January, and February to get ready for March and Springtown meeting. I specifically would like to call out, aside from the administrative staff, Tim, Sean, but also Anne-Marie and Teresa for your work on the Budget Balancing Committee. That is a very unique quirk, as I have found out, about the operation of the town of Norwood. And while it is not, my personal opinion, the most efficient way to do things, I think it is a really great way to sort of build community and build cooperation and trust amongst the boards, and really just the community and town at large. And I know that's a large undertaking. I know that's a lot of work, and I want to recognize you for that as we head into March and reach, you know, the end of the FY27 budget process. So thank you, and echo the same. 2 more wake-ups, and then it's February break. Be well, stay healthy. And then just a reminder, no, I do the reminder afterwards. So pleasure of the committee on a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, Anne-Marie moves.
Second.
Joan seconds. Because we're hybrid, I do have to poll. Teresa.
Yes.
Joan.
Yes.
Anne-Marie.
Yes.
I am a yes as well. Just before we go at 9:47 p.m., I want to remind the public that our next business meeting will be Wednesday, March 4th at 7 p.m. here at the Savage Center. To everyone, be well, stay healthy, enjoy February break, and we will see you in March.